What's up everyone? Welcome to the Cobra Lock, where I take your standard Nuzlocke and add an interesting, dare I say, slithery twist to it. The only Pokemon that can be used have to resemble snakes in some way. And since I'll be doing this in Pokemon Black, a Gen 5 game, in order to have a reasonable amount of encounters, I was forced to take a few artistic liberties, which I hope you all can understand. If we were doing only true snake Pokemon, I'd have exactly 3 encounters. Snivy is my starter, and then Seviper in the Ekans line, but come on, man.
Come on, man!
That's boring. So I decided instead to add these other 7 Pokemon to bring us to an even 10. They all resemble snakes in some way, even if they technically aren't. For instance, I know some of you are pulling your hair out right now because Electric and Electros are eels, but throw me a bone here. Eels are basically the snakes of the ocean anyway. What mattered most to me is that their design and bodies were snake-like in some way. The only real exception to that is Dunsparce, who honestly looks nothing like a snake. But let's call a spade a spade. I mean, the Pokédex literally calls it a land snake, so good enough for me. Finally, I also considered adding Gyarados, but I thought having Gyarados and Melodic at my disposal would just be a little too much, so I settled on just Melodic. With that out of the way, let's quickly cover the other rules for the challenge. First off, any Pokemon that faints in battle is considered dead and cannot ever be used again. Second, I get 1 encounter per gym except for 1 additional encounter before the first gym. I will spin a wheel with all the possible encounters and whatever it lands on will be my next team member. To generate the encounters, I will use action replay codes as most of these Pokemon aren't available in the game since they're from other regions. Third, I get as many healing items in battle as my opponent has, no more, no less. Fourth, I cannot level my Pokemon past the level of the next important trainer's ace Pokemon. And by important trainer I mean Elite Four member, gym leader, you get the deal. Fifth, I must play on set mode at all times. Sixth, I'm allowed to use other Pokemon for HMs if needed. And finally, the last rule is I am allowed to use rare candies to level up my Pokemon instead of grinding. If you disagree with any of these rules or my methods of encountering the Pokemon, fair enough. But what I can say is that everything that matters, like navigating the actually important battles, that's the same as any other Nuzlocke, and I got other stuff going on with my life, so anyway, let's get into it. I'm no pro Pokemon player or anything, so this could be a struggle. We'll see how it goes. Wish me luck. We start off in the quaint Nuvema town, where Professor Juniper drops off the starter Pokemon in our room. Obviously, there's only one option for this challenge, and that's Snivy. So we pick them up, and then after some battles with Charon and Bianca, head over to Juniper's lab. There we get the Pokédex and nickname our Snivy Whiplash, because it whips vines like their lashes, and because Whiplash is a goated movie you gotta see if you haven't already. Anyway, after that we take our first steps into the world of Charon and Bianca, which I guess is a wholesome moment. We reach Agimula town, where some communist with green hair presides over the town's population of 10 people and tries to secure their votes in the next election. After he's done with that, we meet another guy with green hair, arguably the most interesting villain in the series, N. He immediately engages us in a battle, but thankfully he's not really a threat right now. That being said, he probably will be the cause of a lot of heartbreak later on, don't worry. Foreshadowing much? Our reward for beating him is our very first encounter, which turns out to be Ekans. Wouldn't have been my first pick, but I guess it fits with this early stage of the game. We catch one and call her Cobra Kai, cause she's never gonna die. Upon arriving in Drayden City, we quickly challenge the gym, and this is our first real test of the challenge. Being that we chose Snivy, we're matched up against Chili, who sends out his Lillipup. After some back and forth, we take it out no problem with a few Vine Whips from Whiplash, but then comes in Pansear. We switch into Cobra Kai and use Glare to gain the speed advantage. Cobra Kai then bites away at the Flame Monkey, getting it into the red, but then tragedy strikes. Pansear had built up a few workups by this point, and he's able to take out Cobra Kai for our first death of the run. Of course it's a critical hit too. Terrific. Still, we can't feel sorry for ourselves, so I send out Whiplash, who avenges his teammate with a rage-filled tackle that gets us the victory and our first badge. After mourning our loss, we take our anger out on a couple of Team Plasma grunts, obliterating them in the Dream Yard so hard that they legit start hallucinating. We then spin the wheel for our next encounter and get Dratini. Honestly, that's a really good encounter for this stage in the game. Dragon Rage is OP, and it can really get us out of some binds. So we catch her and call her Slither IO. Then we get bothered by Team Plasma again. Luckily, we're able to handily defeat them, but they're just annoying. We also have to battle N upon arriving at Nacrene City, and he was really easy, so I'm not really going to bother showing the fight. He walks off spouting some crazy talk about like catching a legendary Pokemon or something, as if he's really him, and we just kind of ignore him and go on to the gym. And after going on a little scavenger hunt, we're able to find the second gym leader, Lenora, camping out in an underground library dungeon. Guess you could say she's something of an introvert, huh? Regardless, we enter the battle pretty much banking on one strategy, Dragon Rage. To that end, we just spam it against Herdier until it goes down, and then Lenora also wastes a super potion along the way, so that's kind of a bonus for us. Then comes out the much bigger threat, Watchog. It goes for Hypnosis, and lucky for us misses. We then paralyze with Thunder Wave to gain the speed advantage, and we proceed to take Watchog out with 2 Dragon Rages for the W. Thank goodness for that move though, or we probably would have been cooked. Lenora congratulates us and gives us the second badge, meaning we get to spin the wheel for encounter number 3. Electric. Not too bad, and again, I'll take it for this point of the game. We're able to catch one outside Pinwheel Forest, and we nickname him Zeus. Should be a valuable team member for a lot of this challenge. We then deal with more plasma shenanigans in the Pinwheel Forest as they stole a dragon skull from the Nacrene Museum, but they don't give us any issues. I pummel through every last one of those wannabe Al Capones and then keep it moving onto the Skyla Bridge. Walking this bridge has to be one of my favorite parts of the game, by the way. The scenery is as good as it gets for Nintendo DS graphics, and just combine that with the camera angles and the experience is just majestic. But back to the real world, we're immediately greeted by Team Plasma again, as those pesky bastards refuse to leave us alone. We beat one of Ghetsis' little minions, and then we get to hear from the big man himself. He pretends to be philanthropic by returning Bianca her Pokemon, even though he just cares about himself, and then he just kinda walks out the door. Wasting no time, we follow suit and head to the gym to challenge Burgh. And not gonna lie, the strategy here is really similar to Lenora. Dragon Rage and a Prayer. It works against Whirlipede no problem, but against Dwebble I end up going with Whiplash since Leaf Tornado is special based and Dwebble has no strong bug moves anyway. But out comes Levani and I counter with Zeus. After a quick back and forth, Zeus takes a crit Razor Leaf that brings him to the red, but he's also able to paralyze Levani, which gives us the speed advantage. And really that's all we needed as the rest of the fight goes without a hitch. I bring in Slither IO and she just takes down Levani in 2 Dragon Rages no problem. The third badge is secured, so let's cross our fingers that encounter 4 is the good one. We spin the wheel and it ends up being an Onyx, which is again an excellent encounter being that the next gym is electric. We're getting pretty lucky with these encounters. We end up getting one on Route 4 and we nickname him Metalhead, which is going to make a lot more sense later. We wander through the desert and make it over to Nimbasa City where we catch up with N. Not sure how it came up exactly, but after discussing the lovely weather in Nimbasa, he just out of the blue, all nonchalant, just tells us he's king of Team Plasma. Well damn, thanks for being subtle, N. As if that wasn't enough, he also challenges us to a battle immediately after. It doesn't go particularly well for our hippie nemesis though, as Whiplash clocks his Sandile with a Leaf Tornado, Slither IO takes care of Darumaka with Dragon Rage, and Zeus wipes out Sigilith with a Spark. Clearly salty over getting his ass kicked and does the whole big things coming, stay out of my way routine. But we just kind of ignore him, and we proceed to the 4th gym. And after experiencing some vertigo and puking our guts out, we're able to find our way to Elisa, the hottest female gym leader in the entire series. Do not at me, and we challenge her. As expected, Metalhead is the star of the show. He takes out her first Emolga with a Rock Tomb, her second Emolga with a Smackdown, and then makes quick work of Elisa's Ace Substrika with a combination of Dig and Smackdown to get us the win. Elisa doesn't slide us her number, I really wish she had, but we still do get our 4th gym badge, and we get to spin for our 5th encounter. Ends up being Huntail, can't complain about that, being that the 5th gym is actually ground type, so another super effective encounter. We get one on Route 5 and name her Loudmouth just cuz, and after that we end up beating up a couple of preschoolers. Yes, I said that, and do not use it out of context and use it to arrest me. Anyway, we just did it cuz Alder told us to, alright, so don't come blaming me here. Elisa then opens up the drawbridge for us to cross over into everyone's favorite place, Driftveil City. In the Driftveil cold storage, we yet again have to deal with Team Plasma. Man, they are persistent. But at least it helps us train up for the next gym. The gym leader Clay and his army of muscleheads drag out Team Plasma, and that allows us to move on to the gym itself, which I've always really liked. It's like a cooler version of Lenora's gym since Clay is hidden way below all of the gym trainers. But still, I'm feeling pretty good heading into this fight, and we kinda hard counter his team, so I don't expect Clay to put up much of a fight. A bit of fear does creep over me though as Crocroc uses Swagger on Loudmouth, which I probably should have planned for with the Person Berry. That fear evaporates as Loudmouth fights through and takes him down with a Water Pulse. Clay's Ace Excadrill follows, and we actually take him down super easily as well with the Water Pulse and a Brine. That just leaves Palpitoad, who immediately bites the dust to a quad effective Leaf Tornado after switching in Whiplash. Thanks for the easy battle, Clay. I appreciate it, man. Obtaining the 5th badge allows us to move on and then receive our next encounter, Viper. I call her Samantha and catch her on Route 6, and hopefully she can be a good contributor for us. But before we make it to the next city, we have another run-in with N at Chargestone Cave. Like usual though, it's not much of a challenge. Metalhead is able to take out his Boldore with a dig, and then it's just kind of rinse and repeat from there, as Slither.io takes out his Pharaoh Seed, Joltik, and Clink with Dragon Rage for a low-effort victory. So as you can see, Whiplash is dead. I was just battling a random Ace Trainer in Celestial Tower, not really thinking anything of it, and then he just takes a critical hit from Future Sight just out of nowhere. It's a very strong Psychic type move, no doubt, but I honestly thought Whiplash was going to be fine. This really came as a shock to me, and it's a huge blow for us at this point of the challenge. I mean, we lost our boy here, the one we've had since the very beginning. It's tough, we just have to keep fighting through it though. Rip Whiplash, really sorry this happened, man, and we gotta keep moving. So we make it to the top of the tower, and we run into Skyla, who does her best Jasmine impersonation. After that, we ring the bell, and then we head over to the gym to hopefully beat the crap out of her team to avenge Whiplash here. Loudmouth is going to be starting us out in the battle, and she starts off strong by taking out Skyla's Swoobat with a couple of bites. After that, though, is where I make a really dumb choice. Skyla sends out her Unfezant, and despite Loudmouth being only on 40 hit points, I just kind of leave her out there, and we just keep attacking for some reason. To this day, I'm still not exactly sure why I did this, but obviously it's not surprising what happens next. Unfezant takes out Loudmouth with a critical hit Razor Wind, and I can't even be mad at anyone other than myself. Nice job, idiot. Fortunately, the other fight is easy after that with the power of Zeus on our side. He steamrolls through Unfezant and Swanna like it's nothing, and we obtain our 6th gym badge. But before we move on, let's quickly pay our respects to Loudmouth. And yeah, it's just a shame she had to go out this way. She had a lot of talent, a lot of potential to be a key contributor for us on the squad. I feel pretty guilty, but gotta keep moving. Rest in peace, girl. We spin for encounter 7, and it actually turns out to be Loudmouth's sister, Gorobus. We catch one on Route 7 and call her Monica. She'll be a vital piece of our team, since she is basically replacing Loudmouth. We're able to make it through Twist Mountain after that, en route to Icirrus City, but we run into some more plasma dumbasses at the exit. Sharon and I make them piss their pants though as they run away, and then we just head straight to the 7th gym. The gym leader Brycen is basically the Byron of this generation, and I don't think anybody has ever had a hard time beating him. So what can go wrong, right? Zeus leads us off and eventually takes out Vanillish by spamming Spark after a war of attrition, and also Brycen healing a couple of times. And after that, he sends out Beartic, where again, I make a very stupid decision. I didn't plan for this fight, at all, because it's, usually easy money, and I forgot that Beartic actually knows Swagger. So he uses it, and that puts us in a precarious situation. I decide to gamble though and just kind of hope Zeus can break through, but he doesn't, so now I'm a little bit concerned. We use one of our 2 healing items and then take a crit brine because, of course, Icicle Crash then takes Zeus down to 34 hit points, but fortunately the luck evens out, as Zeus snaps out of confusion and nails the big polar bear with a critical hit Spark. Cryogonal then comes out and doesn't really cause as much trouble, as Zeus eventually takes it down with another Spark. And with that, we got our 7th badge and earn our 2nd to last encounter. Please be Milotic, please be Milotic. Son of a... We catch a Dunsparce right outside the Dragonspiral Tower and nickname her Sleepy, because she really do look like she could use a nap. Now is the part of the story where we lean into the whole good guy thing and have to take down Team Plasma. And that starts by demolishing a bunch of the grunts in the Dragonspiral Tower, which we do effortlessly. But then, at the very top of the tower, we find N, and it looks like he's made a new friend. Holy crap, none other than the Black Dragon himself. Guess that dude wasn't joking earlier when he said he was gonna run into a legendary Pokemon, huh? We then circle back to the Relic Castle hidden in the desert of Route 4, beating up some more Team Plasma grunts along the way, and our reward for that is just listening to Ghetsis threaten us and talk about world domination. So basically a typical day. After this, our final stop is back in Nacrene City, where we meet up with the Brain Trust, have a war room talk, and then receive some silly white stone, because that's exactly what we need right now. But after all that story crap, we're finally able to head over to Opaloosa City and challenge the final gym leader, Drayden, the Univalore Master himself. He sends out Fracture, and I send out Metalhead, now a Steelix. See, that nickname does make sense after all. And he basically resists pretty much everything Drayden's got, so I'm feeling pretty good here. Fracture goes down to 2 quick Ice Fangs, and Druddigon comes out next. But this is where things start to take a turn for the worse. We spam Ice Fang for a bit, but Druddigon's Rough Skin ability actually whittles down some of Metalhead's health, and Druddigon also has Revenge, a fighting type move that can do big damage. So eventually I switch to Zeus, but Druddigon says no and uses Dragon Tail, which switches the current Pokemon to a random one from your party. So Slither.io, who has no dog in this fight, comes out. I decide to again play a high risk game though by going for it with a Dragon Tail, and it actually does land and takes out Druddigon. Unfortunately though, we still have to deal with Drayden's ace Icirrus, which can easily kill a run. I send out Metalhead, but he gets switched back into Slither.io a couple of times, courtesy of Icirrus using Dragon Tail. Eventually Monica comes out, and being that she's pretty tanky, I just kinda leave her in there for a bit. We use Psychic, get a big special defense drop, while Icirrus sets up, go for another Psychic, bring Icirrus down to just outside healing range, but then he goes for Dragon Dance again, and at this point I am terrified, because Icirrus might be able to sweep through my entire team if I'm not careful. I bring out Metalhead and then just close my eyes and pray, just hoping he doesn't attack me here. Fortunately, he keeps setting up with Dragon Dance, and Metalhead is able to seal Drayden's fate with an Ice Fang. I gotta say though, that could have gone a lot worse than it did. I just didn't play that as well as I could have. At least we got a pretty great reward for our effort in the form of Melodic, which I catch in a Master Ball in Route 10. I call him Wallace after my goat from Hoenn, and then we just keep moving. But before we can reach Victory Road, Sharon and Bianca stop us for a brief, wholesome moment. Sharon challenges me to one final fight, and I haven't shown any of the rival fights up to this point since they tend to be super easy, but Sharon's team is very improved in this one, so I'll throw him a bone. However, it doesn't really end up being much to write home about. Zeus takes down Unfezant with a discharge, Monica drowns Embor with the surf, and then his Simisage does put up a bit of a fight with some strong seed bombs, but Slither.io finishes him off eventually with a Dragon Tail, and Metalhead finishes off the fight for good, using a combination of Dig and Firefang to take out Sharon's Liepard. After that, we're able to cruise through Victory Road and then make it to the Pokemon League, where our hardest fights await us. The challenge has really only just begun. But let's go through our final team here first and see what strengths they all bring to the table. So Monica starts us off, and I see her as a special attacker with coverage and access to Ghost and Psychic type moves, as well as a backdoor option in Attract. Second is Zeus, who plays the role of physical attacker with coverage and also has no weaknesses, which is great for pivoting. Next is Samantha, and she's helpful because she can paralyze our foes and gives us dark, bug, and poison coverage, which we otherwise lack. Fourth is our girl Slither though, and yeah, I don't see her being very useful at all. If she's out in the battle, something has definitely gone wrong. Fifth, we've got Wallace, and I think he'll provide a steady presence as a special tank and is also a potential sweeper with Rain Dance and Surf. Finally, our boy Metalhead rounds things out, and he's a menacing physical tank with solid type variety no one else has with Firefang and Iron Tail. Overall, I really like our team, and honestly, the biggest knock on us is just we're kind of slow, we don't pack much of a physical punch, but with the right strategy, I still feel pretty confident. We get things underway by starting off with Marshall, who's got a notoriously strong team that does a lot of damage. I lead with Monica, who's fairly tanky and also has access to Psychic, while he goes with Throw. When planning for this battle, using Attract with Monica struck me as a worthwhile gamble to take, so that's what we do, and it works out quite well. Throw falls head over heels for our Serpentine Duchess and then barely attacks her as we swiftly knock him out. Sawk comes in next, and he outspeeds us and nails a Stone Edge, prompting me to heal, but we're at least able to attract him as well. After a quick back and forth, we're able to take him out without getting hurt too badly. Conkeldurr is brought out third, we land an Attract right away, and then just take him out with 2 Psychics. We never even got a hit since I guess Monica was just that sexy for Conkeldurr. Meanshao comes in last, and a very similar story here. We heal up once more just to not take any risks, but then we're able to take out Marshall's Lovesick Meanshao with a Psychic and Shadow Ball combo. Gotta say, that worked out surprisingly well. Monica might want to look into making an OnlyFans. The next Elite Four member to take on is Caitlyn, the Psychic type member. My plan here was to go for a Rain Dance Surf Sweep with Wallace given what a special tank he is, but it doesn't start out very well. After setting up a light screen, Wallace gets electrified by a Thunder and also paralyzed, and the next turn we're not able to move because of the paralysis, so not ideal. We heal up with a full restore to remove the paralysis, but Reuniclus just refuses to miss his Thunder, despite it being a 70% accurate move. Still, we finally set up a Rain Dance and land the Surf after taking another Thunder, and unfortunately it doesn't do as much as I thought it would. We get taken to the red by a 5th Thunder in a row that lands, and then we're forced to use our last healing item already. Jesus. Caitlyn heals up as well, and we set up a light screen before taking a 6th thunder in a row, and we get paralyzed again. You gotta be shitting me at this point. It then just becomes a war of attrition. Wallace takes a beating with thunder after thunder somehow landing, and we just use recover to restore some of his health before finally taking out that stupid floating abomination. Good riddance. Gothitelle comes out next, and I know she has Thunderbolt, so I switch into Metalhead to try and bait it, but to my surprise she goes for Calm Mind. Hoping for a bit of luck, I just go for Iron Tail kind of blindly, and it doesn't do a ton, but it does drop Gothitelle's defense, putting her in KO range next turn if we land the attack. Fortunately, that's exactly what happens. Thank God. Second to last is Sigilith, and I just figure this is fodder for Zeus, so I bring him out to counter. We cut it a bit close as he gets put into the red, but Zeus ends up taking out the Sigilith with Discharge. Musharna is last, so we Volt Switch out of there and then bring in Monica to tank some shots and go for Shadow Ball. After a scary moment where Psychic does way more than I expected and leaves Monica with just 9 hit points, we're able to finish Musharna off with a Shadow Ball for the win. Man, that was scary, but it did work out at least. The second to last Elite Four member is the Dark-type Master Grimsley, and I go in feeling pretty decent for this battle. His Crocodile can be a bit of a pain, but he's generally pretty easy. Anyway, he sends out Scrafty first, and I lead with Zeus to go for acrobatics, which is what we do, and a couple of turns later Scrafty bites the dust. Crocodile is second, and I debate leaving Zeus in, but instead decide to trust Wallace to tank a couple of shots, and then deliver a one-hit KO with Surf, which is precisely what happens. Bishark comes in third, and I end up switching back to Zeus, but of course, I make another mistake. I thought I had taught Zeus Brick Break before this battle, and I guess I didn't realize it when he was battling Scrafty earlier, but of course I forgot to teach him it, so having to adapt on the fly, I Volt Switch out of there, and I send in Metalhead, who resists everything Bisharp has and takes her out with some digs. We rinse and repeat this process for Lightbird, and then we're able to defeat our third Elite Four member. A bit scarier than it needed to be, but pretty harmless still. Our final Elite Four battle is against the Ghost-type user Shauntal, who definitely strikes me as a heavy Wattpad user. Anyway, she sends out her pesky Koffigrigus first, and I go with Monica, who I'm just kinda hoping can grind through it with some Shadow Balls. Fortunately, that's what happens, and within a couple of turns, Koffigrigus is down. Next up is Jellicent, and I almost keep Monica in, but decide against it at the last second and bring out Zeus, who eats an energy ball just fine, but then takes a critical hit Surf that barely leaves him breathing at 2 hit points. My goodness. We Volt Switch and do a solid amount of damage, bringing in Samantha, who finishes the job with a Black Glasses boosted Crunch. Golurk comes in third for Shauntal, and I go on to make another boneheaded play looking back. I switch into Zeus to eat an Earthquake he's immune to, which is what happens, and then switch out into Wallace to take care of Golurk, and hopefully eat a hit from a less strong attack upon the pivot, which I guess has some merit to it as a play, but it was still very risky. Regardless, Wallace comes in and destroys Golurk with a Surf, but he does end up getting cursed. Chandelure is Shauntal's final team member and probably the most daunting Pokemon in the entire Elite Four. I really want to leave Wallace in, but I just have no choice between being outsped and cursed, so I have to go for Metalhead, and I hope to bait a Shadow Ball, which is what happens. I then switch to Wallace and hope to tank a Fire Blast, which is what happens. I heal up Wallace after this, and then we tank a couple of Shadow Balls before landing a Surf that barely misses the KO on Chandelure. Son of a bitch. Shauntal heals up a couple of times as we keep nailing Surfs, but fortunately we get a bit of luck on our side as the second one ends up being a high roll and it finishes off Chandelure. And with that, we've beaten the Elite Four, deathless to boot. Let's freaking go. That being said, the 2 hardest battles in the game await us next. We rush up the staircase to continue and find out that N has just beaten Alder, that worthless sack of crap. He does have cool hair though. This prompts N to go full on supervillain mode and make a castle just rise out of the ground. We enter it and are faced with the 7 sages of Team Plasma, who pretty much plan to gang assault us until the gym leaders, minus the Strident trio for some reason, show up to save our asses. We make our way around the castle and eventually find where N is, and you know that stupid white stone from earlier? I guess it does have a purpose. Just out of nowhere it unravels into Reshiram, the beautiful white dragon beast himself, but we aren't allowed to use him unfortunately. I still catch him because I basically have to, but then send him to the PC box, even though I was just very tempted to not do that. N heals us up and challenges us in one last epic face-off. Let's do this, boys. He starts out the battle with his own legendary dragon Zekrom, and I knew right away that Metalhead was the man for the job here. With the help of the ground gem, he gets off a powerful dig that brings Zekrom, who sets up a light screen to a small chunk of health right outside heal range. We take a couple of Zen headbutts and then land one more dig to quickly take out arguably N's biggest threat, which had me feeling really good. That was a mistake though. N Zoroark disguised as his Clink comes in next, and my next decision turns out to be the worst one I've made in the entire run, and believe me, I know I've made plenty. I bring out Wallace, who I was anticipating as being a Hail Blizzard Sweeper to take out Pokemon like N's Archeops, who we'll see later, and also gets his Hydreigon, which we'll see in the next fight. But this fails pretty spectacularly. Our Hail boosted Blizzard is just not enough to take Zoroark out, and the residual Hail damage we take from it is probably what ends up costing Wallace's life, as a couple turns later Wallace goes down to a Night Slash, which was a critical hit to be fair, but still a preventable loss and just a horrific blunder at this stage of the run. At this point I'm really doubting our ability to win, just given how important Wallace is to the team, and I have a bit of a mini panic attack. But the show must go on, and we send out our trusty Monica. She tanks a big focus blast from Zoroark and then wipes him out with a Surf. The real Clink comes out next for N, and we swap in Metalhead, who takes a couple of Hyper Beams from Clink that actually do quite a bit of damage. But eventually we're able to triumph over the set of gears with some digs. Caracosta is N's 4th Pokemon, and I switch into Zeus to tank a Waterfall, and then hit hard with a Volt Switch. Caracosta hangs in there with a bit of health though, so I bring out Slither.io for her battling debut in this gauntlet of fights. She's hit like a truck by Stone Edge but survives, and I make yet another blunder here. I thought Caracosta had Water Absorb for an ability, so instead of going for Surf, I go for the 75% accuracy Dragon Rush, and it misses, which allows Caracosta to take Slither.io out. Yeah, this is bad. I swap into Samantha for mop-up duty on Caracosta, and then leave her out for the second to last Pokemon, Vanillix. We get some luck by dodging a Blizzard, but then Crunch barely does anything. We get nailed by a Blizzard after that brings Samantha to the red, but land a Poison Jab that doesn't leave Vanillix with much. I switch into Monica expecting another Blizzard, but it actually turns out to be a Flash Cannon that she tanks really well. Still, we heal up, take another hit from Vanillix, and then finally finish it off with a Surf. This just leaves Archeops. I'm a bit scared to leave Monica in at her current health, but I heal up one final time just to get an idea of how much an attack will do, and unfortunately, it does well over half, meaning we gotta switch. I bring in Metalhead to tank a hit, and then switch into Zeus, thinking Archeops had Earthquake, which I later learned it doesn't. Once again, nice job, dumbass. Anyhow, I eventually figure out Archeops can't really do anything to Metalhead, so I bring him out a second time, but I did waste another healing item on Zeus when I didn't have to, which kinda sucks. Either way, at full health, I bank on Metalhead just being able to bring it home for us, and he's fortunately able to do that by landing an Iron Tail after a bit of back and forth. However, we lose 2 team members we just didn't need to lose, and that is brutal considering the next battle is the hardest one in the whole game. After N is defeated, Ghetsis completely crashes out and just disowns N. He calls him a warped defective boy, which is kind of funny considering he looks like a freak himself, and then reveals his true colors by admitting he doesn't give a shit about trainers or Pokemon after all. What a shocker. He challenges us to the final fight of the game, and all that stands between us and sweet, sweet victory. It is really not going to be easy to beat him though. Ghetsis starts out with Cofagrigus, and I lead with Metalhead, knowing he loves to have Cofagrigus protect and Toxic Stall. But he can't do that against the Steel type. We spam Iron Tail with Metalhead and then take several Shadow Balls that don't really do a lot of damage. We're helped by the fact that our own Iron Tails just seem to never miss, and then we also get a defense drop, so despite Ghetsis healing, his Cofagrigus eventually meets its demise after one last Iron Tail. But up next is the scariest Pokemon Ghetsis has to offer, and that's Hydreigon. I spent a long time thinking about how to take this thing down, and there's not really an easy answer. I debate switching into another Pokemon, but the reality is we have nobody who can outspeed Hydreigon and land a big hit, so it's with a heavy heart that I have no choice but to sack Metalhead off to get a clean switch in. I hope for a miss somehow from the incoming Fire Blast from Hydreigon, but it doesn't happen, and we lose a true warrior and hero in Metalhead. I go with Zeus next and just hope that a Fighting Gem boosted Brick Break will do the trick. However, after taking a strong Dragon Pulse, the Brick Break is just not enough. I heal up and Hydreigon goes for a Surf on the next turn, which doesn't do a ton of damage, but this is a trick to lull me into a false sense of security, and I don't realize it. I try to attack again rather than heal, and Hydreigon goes for a Dragon Pulse to eliminate Zeus and effectively end our run, barring a complete miracle. Our number 1 mop-up specialist Samantha takes out the trash after landing a big hit from Hydreigon with a X-Scissor, but there's not really any hope left. Bouffalant comes out for a Ghetsis, and after an intense debate myself on what to do, I send out Monica despite not really having a plan. We take a Wild Charge for big damage and heal up, but then get crushed by a critical hit head charge because naturally, and Monica goes down. Not that it matters, but then I forget that Slither.io is dead and I send her out, but she dies immediately to another head charge anyway. So we're down to our final Pokemon being Samantha, and knowing full well she's not going to survive, I just send her out there and pray something insane will happen, but it doesn't. Bouffalant outspeeds and lands another critical hit head charge, and that ends the run for good. I was pretty upset with myself after this because I know I could have made better decisions, I could have planned for the battles more, and I probably could have found a way to win. However, it just wasn't meant to be this time, and you live and you learn, so hopefully I can try this challenge or a similar one to it again later and see if I can't redeem myself. Anyway, that concludes our story, so if you enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel. Let me know if you want to see another Pokemon challenge. So thanks for watching everyone, and have a great day.